Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Spring One. I am so excited about our next talk. It's about From Zero to Spring Boot Hero. Our two speakers are Martin Lippert and Sandra Algram. Folks, take it away.
Welcome, everyone. We are so happy to have you with us. Yes, we really make it from zero to Spring Boot Hero with GitHub Codespaces. So we're going to start with no project setup at all. We're going to install all the needed extension, program a little bit Springy stuff, and then we will publish it to the cloud. We'll also add some tips and tricks here and there. And I'm here with Martin, the lead for Spring Boot tools. So I'm very, very happy to have this joint session. Slide-wise, sorry, we don't have much slides. It's a full demo session. So why don't we start it right away? So I'm here in my GitHub repository. I created in GitHub organization or in GitHub Enterprise, and you can do a free trial as I'm doing here to give it a try, give Codespaces a try. Codespaces is a full IDE inside the cloud for me, so I don't need to have anything installed on my machine to use it, which is very, very cool. And also, if I would need something more powerful for heavy workloads or anything like that, I could also just take a Codespace, give it a powerful machine, and then make that run. So the repository name will be Hello Spring 1, like this. And I'm giving it a README, and it's going to be all public, so you also can exit it. You find it under github.com/java-advocates. So I will create this repository, nice and easy, just like that. You probably already heard about this trick where you enter dot and then a Codespace would open. That you can do, or you go the way where you click on code and then create a new Codespace from here. So this one will set me up a Codespace environment. So again, it's an IDE inside my cloud background, but I didn't have to register anywhere. So I'm just using my GitHub Enterprise or the GitHub Teams here. So I hope that's big enough. So that should be at least. So here's my empty project. And what I want to do is kick it off with the Spring tools. So I will totally go with the Spring Boot extensions, install them, and I will also use the Java extension pack. And as I said, we're going from zero to hero, so I will also deploy it to any cloud. And in my case, I will use the Azure cloud for it with the famous Azure Spring Cloud. We've heard so many sessions, or we've heard, I don't know, 3 times today already. But yeah, as I said, it's just any cloud you can use. So all my extensions got installed. Oh no. It says I'm having an error, but yeah, I mean, it should look good. Okay. So now I can create a new project, and I'm looking for the welcome screen for my for the Spring tooling. So it should be at help, welcome. So here it is, welcome at Spring VS Code. Yeah, so don't miss that up. It says VS Code, but you're inside GitHub. But yeah, it looks a lot like VS Code, and it should actually also be the whole same experience. So let me check again what's going on with my Spring Boot extensions. Oh, I was probably too quick. So I'm just make sure that it got installed again. So now I can create a new Spring Boot project, either from here, or I open up the command palette with Command D, Shift, and P. So I'm using the Spring version, just the latest and greatest stable version. I'm going with Java here and leave the rest as it is. Going with Java 11 is fine. And here for dependencies, for this example, we are going to use the Spring Web extension as well as the actuator to get some very nice custom endpoints for monitor and monitoring the application and the Azure support. Okay, so that's all the dependencies I need. I will go with this workspace and add this repository to my workspace here in Codespaces. So as you can see, it generated a full project for me, a full Spring project. I also used this start.spring.io, but I don't have to go to a browser. I can just do it in my IDE as well. So that's very, very cool, I think. And it gives me the same capabilities like on start.spring.io. So here's my demo application. I can just run it from here. And also here's my test. And one thing I want to point out is, yes, we installed the Java extension, but it's not used yet. So the code highlighting comes from a tool which is always pre-installed for Codespaces called AnyCode, which gives me a very nice view. But to actually run and debug, I want to switch to standard mode to enable the Java extension. So I'm doing that right now. And yeah, as we already installed the Spring Boot tooling, I should be able to see the outline here and gives me the main endpoint also here for my Spring project. Great. So now the Java support is integrated, so I can easily run my project from here. That's cool. And I can also open that up in my browser. And here you can see I even got an URL for this. I could also share. So why don't we program a little bit? So let me add a hello world controller. So you see it's also doing auto completion, and now I can add the REST controller, also works with shortcuts, and now use the get mapping method. So it created the whole boilerplate for me, so I can now easily enter some values here. Enter the return type, which is going to be just a simple string, and then enter the name here. Martin, should we go with Hello World or Hello Spring 1? What is cooler?
Hello Spring 1, of course. I want Hello Spring 1.
Okay, let's do that. Okay, save that, stop it here, rerun. I could also go with Maven here, but I can also just press 1 or go with F5. Okay, so up and running again. Can open that up in my browser and go on my URL I just specified. There we go. Hello Spring 1. So that was quick and easy. I think we are now like, I don't know, 5 minutes on time, and I already created a complete new project. I have my IDE set up with all the extensions. So that is very quick and easy. I can now save my code in Git. So I can just use here the commit source control capability, or I stick with my terminal. That's totally up to your. So I would just go with the terminal, init project, and go with git push. So all my colleagues and everyone can now access this code. But what I also want to make sure is that Martin, when he opens up this project, that he has all necessary extensions installed. That totally makes sense to bind the extensions you're using to the Codespace, because remember, Codespace is like VS Code, so you can program in almost all languages. I just learned in the last session with Josh Long and Layla and Julian that you can actually also program Kotlin in VS Code. Wasn't aware of this, but yeah, as I said, let's make sure that everyone else also can have the Codespaces set up correctly with the extensions we already installed. So I would just go with the and add a development container configuration file here. So I go with Java and 11. So it already will go with the extension pack, and I use Maven as well. So there are some things missing. First of all, the settings. So when you remember, we switched to standard mode. So let's do that as well. Then Martin doesn't have to do that also. standard, and then the extensions. So here we have the Java pack already, but we also need the Spring Boot one, and make sure you have the full package. And then we can go with the Microsoft Azure tools as well. So let's see. And if you are not sure which one to choose, you can also go again to the extension menu and then search here for the specific one you've installed. And then here at more info, you can find the identifier. So you can also copy paste just this one into your dev container to make sure that it got configured correctly for everyone else creating the code space, or if you want to shut down the code space and then reuse it, that you have everything installed from scratch. So I also want to go with the Spring Cloud. So let's see what the identifier is here. All right. And when I have this, I will push it again, commit and push, so that Martin can use it. All right. And with that, Martin, do you want to take it over and I do the deployment later on?
Yeah, that sounds great. Let me share my screen so that I can show stuff that I'm doing here.
Wait a second. So because I'm very sure that I missed a lot of tips and tricks from the Spring tooling part, so you probably have something. And I've also heard that you can actually use Codespaces not just in the browser. Is that correct?
Yeah, let me first kick off a browser session, and then I will jump over to my desktop installation. What I think is very cool about this is that Sandra configured everything. So she made up the project, she configured everything. She defined basically how my dev environment should look like. And I don't need to install anything locally on my machine. I don't need to think about which Java version do I really need and which Java version do I not need, and do I have Maven installed or not. It is basically setting up this container environment for me. And this is what happened a moment ago. So setting up a container in the cloud for me, myself. So it's not the same container as Sandra was using. It's kind of a new container for me, but configured in the same way. So I see, as you can see here, the Spring tools are already installed, Java tooling is installed. So I could just go ahead and hack on this project and do stuff myself in my code space, but pre-configured with all the stuff that I need. So you will see there's the Java extension coming up here, doing the Java tooling as we saw that with Sandra, same with the Spring tooling and stuff like that. So it's basically all the same. And this is really great if you want to share the stuff among your team, or if you want to kind of push a project onto GitHub and tell people what should they really use and how should they configure things to get started right away without dealing with local installs or whatever. So I think this is this is really, really, really cool. You can see the Java project is here, Spring outline is here. I could even run the project over here as well, which I think is really, really, really nice. But there's another angle to that Sandra already mentioned a little bit, which is that some people don't really like to work inside of a browser window for real coding work day in, day out. Maybe because there are kind of shortcut overlaps with the browser, or things are not exactly the same. So what we can do here is that I jump to my VS Code, and this is my VS Code that I installed locally on my machine. So this is my pure VS Code, as many people around the world use that. And there is an extension called GitHub Codespaces that you can install. And once you have that and the remote extension installed, you can actually go here and see what are my code spaces that I have available and running. And this is my code space that I just created a second ago. And I can now connect my local running VS Code to this code space. So this sort of combines the benefits of, hey, I have my VS Code running locally on my machine, and it still feels like a real native, locally running IDE. And the development environment itself is still running in the cloud in this dev container machine that is running somewhere. And I still get all the extensions installed that I need. They're all running in this dev container. So it feels basically like the same that we saw in a browser, but with the feeling of a real locally installed IDE. So again, it opens up the same Java projects, does all the same stuff. Even if I have a plain brand new VS Code installed locally without any extensions installed except for the GitHub one. So which I think is pretty nice. And so what you can see here, for example, is that Springy tools are showing up. So if I want to look for specific things, I can take a look at all these symbols, all the Springy symbols, get an overview about stuff of my Spring project. So you see all the Spring tools and the Java tools that you're familiar with from VS Code, they still work the same in Codespaces, which I think is pretty awesome. The cool thing is I can even run the app. So let me just run the stuff here. So it kicks off the application. And this might sound a little bit strange because you don't really exactly know where does it run, but it runs inside of the dev container inside of the cloud. So where the real dev container is running, but it forwards the port locally. So I get a local port forward to my machine from this IDE combination. So I could go here and say, what did you use? You use hello, right? Hello Spring 1. So that's the app that is running. I could do more fancy stuff with the Springy tooling. I could, for example, also go here and connect to this application to get some live information. But in order to do that, I would need to configure actually the app in a specific way. We can do that, but it's basically the same that you see in your local running IDE and stuff that you're familiar with. So this gives you really the choice and the option to say, hey, I can do it locally on my VS Code. I can go to the browser. And in both ways, the same dev environment is pre-configured for me, which I think is pretty awesome. Sandra, do you want to kind of show some deployment stuff to Azure?
Yes, I'm ready to go from here.
Cool.
So let me share my screen again.
I think we still have a few minutes left, so it would be great to see that.
So as we saw, I added the Azure tools. So I do have Azure here. I just signed in, and now I have two ways where I could upload my app. One of this could be app service. I would just go and use the workspace and then create a new web app, or use the existing one and then deploy it to app service, or I go with the famous Spring Cloud. Here's a Spring cluster, a Spring Cloud cluster I already set up. I think you're all aware Spring Cloud is the abstraction from from Kubernetes for me. So I do have a full running Kubernetes cluster in the background, but everything nicely hidden for me. So, and here I can actually deploy my app as well. So I would just go and select the workspace. Oops. And let's bring one demo target. And okay, so I need the jar file first. So I can just go with Maven install or Maven package and then skip test. That saves us some time. Oops, I need to be in the correct folder, and then we do that. And once my jar file is built, I can do that. And in the meanwhile, I could also, as we said, we are here in Codespaces, I could also change my machine type. So if I know that I do have heavy workloads, I could have also chosen more cores or more RAM. But let's not do that right now. So my jar file got generated. So I will go ahead and deploy my app. And yeah, and once it's deployed, I can also start streaming logs. So I can see my logs from the app inside here. And I could also access the public endpoint and check if my app is already up and running. And yeah, this one is an old one because we just created an Hello Spring 1 app. So let's redeploy. So I go on deploy and then choose the correct demo folder, target, and now we have the jar file. So now it's getting deployed. It should be quite quick. I mean, in the real world scenario, you just do that probably 1, 2, 3 times, and then you have a CI/CD circle which would follow with git push, or you have a GitHub action in place which would do the deployment for you. But yeah, you can also do it all inside your IDE, which I think is very cool. And you can also connect to your databases all inside Codespaces as you're used to VS Code. So it's now updating the deployment, should be there in a few seconds. So let's see. You can also stream the logs again, see what's happening.
While you're doing that, Sandra, there's a question on the Slack channel about GitHub Codespaces. Is that available for Enterprise Edition only? Can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, so it's available for Enterprise Edition as well as for GitHub Teams. What you can do and what is free is Codespaces Live. So I think you have already seen that if you go on GitHub to any repository, you can just press dot, and then you would end up in something like this. But this one is all in browser. So now I can access the public endpoint as it got deployed now. So I can go to my path and see Hello Spring 1, but this time I'm inside my Azure cloud and not just on the local or on the GitHub local machine.
Cool, awesome. Should we switch back to the resource slides and the final thank you? Because I think we walked through basically from nothing on your local machine, just a browser installed, to creating Spring Boot projects, hacking on code using all the Springy tools in VS Code, online in the browser, locally on my desktop machine, combined, and even deployed that. And that's all in 25 minutes or maybe 20 minutes. So you see, it's a real thing that you can use. And I hope you like the session. We have some resources on the slides for you, stuff that you need to install or that maybe you want to install. I think we'll share the slides somewhere so that you don't need to write down the URLs now.
Yeah, and if you want to use the dev containers in VS Code, you can just install the GitHub Codespace extension, and then you're ready to go as well.
Cool. And I think that's where we are. If you want to contact us, feel free to ping us on Twitter. And if you want to learn more about Springy tooling in all the different IDEs like IntelliJ, VS Code, and Eclipse, feel free to join us and Hadi for a session tomorrow, a 1-hour session about all the beautiful Spring tooling in the world. With that, from my side, thanks a lot for joining, and hope you liked it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Please don't forget to follow us on Twitter. You can find me at @screamheld or Martin at Martin Lippert. Yeah, and feel free to jump over to our Q&A channel. You can find it if you go under the Slack channel for Q&A, and then there's the link for the Zoom call. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Well, Sandra, Martin, oh my gosh, I've got new toys to play with. I'm excited. So guess what I'm doing? I'm pressing the dot and I'm going to start playing with some apps out there. So thank you for sharing that with us. So folks, please join Martin and Sandra in the Zoom chat. You can find that on your Slack channel and join them over there and ask them questions and learn all the good stuff about that. Up next, Jennifer Reef will be covering Code Wars, database decisions for application development. And that, my friends, will be joining us at 3:05 p.m. Eastern. So look forward to seeing you then.